Mic check. 1, 2, 3. all the way in. Come on in. All right. Oh yeah, come on in. Yeah, yeah. It does make it feel like that at times, though. It's kind of a. You want to come all the way around? Excellent. All right. Good morning, everyone. I am so pleased to be here for the 12th of 13 weeks of Friday press conferences. We have a little bit of a different format today. We're going to take today's press conference in two different parts. The first is to have a conversation about the importance of not leaving anyone behind. And the second part will bring in our chair of our Budget and Taxation Committee and our chair of our Finance Committee to talk about the week before and the week ahead in the final days of session. But I wanted to start in an important moment in time. We are blessed to be in such an incredible state. A state with resources, a state with diversity of people, of thought, of ideas. It is what makes us Marylanders great, is our tolerance and our willingness to give every person the opportunity to live up to their God-given potential. That is what makes our state an amazing place. And what also makes it an incredible place is the investment that we have made in public schools for decades. Most importantly, recently, this budget year, we are investing $8.78 billion this year to implement one of the most aggressive reforms and improvements of public education of any state in the entire country. On top of that, we are investing a record no less than $800 million for future year costs. Because in Maryland, we believe that we must have a great system of public schools. It is a driving value for here in the state. It's what makes us economically competitive. And we also have the opportunity to invest in institutions and most importantly, into parents and to children so that they have the opportunity and the advantage to be able to maximize their potential in a different environment, should that be their choice. And that's what we're here today. I'm joined by a number of parents and children who attend a number of schools throughout the state of Maryland, some faith-based, some not. But what we know is that in these individual schools, students are thriving. And this year, at the end of session, after this unbelievable historic commitment that we've made in our public school system, there's been an ongoing discussion amongst colleagues, amongst those who have similar values, about what is the best way to make sure that all kids have options and that we truly don't leave any parent, any child behind as we leave session here for the 2023 General Assembly. I'm joined by Kira English, Gregory Butler, Samuel Shrivers, who are of the Mother Mary Lang Catholic School in Baltimore, Carmela Diaz, Anna Carvajal of the St. Matthias School of the Apostle, Nefertari Lee, parent of Calvert Hall and one of the leaders for the Boost Action Network, Osama Lara, who's also of St. Matthias the Apostle, and Shlomo Goldberger, who is a parent of a number of students who have taken advantage of the Boost program. I'm going to hand it over so that they can tell the story themselves. I think oftentimes when things are heated and there's conversations about dollar amounts or programs, it's very easy to discount the actual impact. We represent people, and we represent families, and we represent children. And so it's important as we have a conversation here at the end of session that we put a face and a name to a story to the importance of investing in all opportunities for all kids. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to our parent advocate, Nefertari Lee.
Good morning, everyone. My son, Bryce, attended Calvert Hall Catholic High School for Boys in Towson, Maryland. Bryce has since graduated and is in his first year at college in Virginia and is thriving. We were recipients of the Boost Scholarship for 4 years, and it is my passion to make sure that parents are aware of the program, continue to apply, and that's why I became more involved with Boost. So I am now the parent leader of the coalition. And when you look at me, I want you to look at 3,000 people behind me because that's what I represent. These are a few of the parents that could come today, but I represent 3,000 children who need this invaluable program, this lifeline of a program that changes lives, and children thrive from it. And I just want to thank you for your time, and I thank you for all the good work that you're doing.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Next, we'd like to welcome up Mr. Goldberger, who can speak from the parents' perspective as well.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I don't think it's an understatement to say, as an Orthodox Jew, it's of prime importance that we have the ability to transmit our faith to the next generation. And we are blessed with a number of wonderful schools in Baltimore City and Baltimore County that offer us that opportunity. And while our schools do their very, very best to work with each family, many of us have a lot of kids. Thank God my wife and I have been blessed with a large family. We're a family of 8. And the strain of being able to provide our children with the education that's important and meaningful to us is significant. And it's very challenging. Professionally, I'm a director of a small nonprofit that offers transitional services and education for young adults. My wife is a part-time stenographer and a full-time homemaker. And before Boost, being able to cover that tuition and provide our kids what they so desperately needed was challenging and sometimes painful. And ever since Boost came into our lives, it's not just been a game changer, but a life changer. And it may sound like not a lot, a few $1,000s per family, but when you're teetering on the edge, as it is, and you're trying to figure out how can I educate my kids in the way that's most impactful and most important to me as a parent, to my wife, to our community, those Boost dollars go a very, very long way. And what they've been able to provide our family in terms of the ability to breathe and to have a proper infrastructure in their home really cannot be understated. And I thank all those who have been in support of Boost, and I sincerely hope that they will continue doing so. Thank you for your time.
And finally, I would ask Gregory Butler, who is an 8th grader at Mother Mary Lang Catholic School, who got the day off school today for at least the morning, to just give his perspective.
How y'all doing? My name is Gregory Butler. I attend Mother Mary Lang. And us kids are the future. And as hard as my mother work right now, I want her to work harder. So that's why I'm putting in the work for us children. And I want to say, taking all this money away, that's bad, because we need it. Yeah, it's now or never.
Thanks, Greg. And I have to say, when I was asking if anyone wanted to speak, it was Gregory's mom who was pushed to make sure. He said that he wants to make sure that he had an opportunity to say his piece, because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about making sure that every child has the opportunity to be able to thrive in the environment that is best suited for them. And that is what we're trying to work on here at the end of session. And I believe that reasonable minds will find a solution forward. And so I want to thank the parents and students who have joined us here today. Thank you for coming in to help put a name and a face. And hopefully you have a safe ride back to home. So thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you. Appreciate you all. Yes. See you soon. Oh, yes. Can I give you a list afterwards? Does that work? Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So as we transition over and are joined by the Chair of Finance and the Chair of Budget and Tax, I do just want to kind of highlight a few of the other budget items that are outstanding and that will be a part of this historic package that we have, that we will get to a resolution in short order here. We passed the budget of the Senate out of, and I've repeated this over and over, but it's really important, 47-0. It was a unanimously approved budget when it moved out of the Senate. And so, when we think about how we started the session and the thoughts about whether or not, with Democrats at the helm of governor and speaker and Senate president, that what would happen. Well, what's happened in the Maryland Senate is that we have a unanimously approved budget, and so that's what we're negotiating the small remaining details out, and it's going to be a very, very successful year because we're very close. I do want to welcome Senator Griffith, the chair of our Finance Committee, who's been doing Herculean work with a number of issues that are outstanding and really heavy, complicated issues that they've been moving forward. And then, of course, Senator Gazzoni, who is our chair of our Budget and Taxation Committee, who's been just a phenomenal negotiator and helped lead through a 47-0 budget that has passed the Senate already. So other few things that I just want to mention to make sure that are important that will remain no matter where the budget lands. We have $3 billion in cash resources, cash reserves, $2.5 billion in the rainy day fund. Again, we have $8.78 billion for Maryland's public pre-K to 12 schools. This is a historic investment. We made an additional, on top, $800 million of investment for future year costs, because we know that our public education system is first and foremost. It is the primary opportunity for the state of Maryland. And then, of course, the other area of difference is that the Senate set aside $200 million for transportation investments moving forward. And so that's what the kind of final pieces of conversation are about in the budget negotiations. But before I go too far into it, I'm going to hand it over to Senator Griffith to talk about where things are in finance and some of the big bills that we are moving on the floor and that will be coming over the next week.
Thank you, Mr. President, and always good to be with my good colleague and former chair, the Chair of Budget and Tax. So it's been a pleasure to meet with you all a couple of times this session. Senate Finance has had a very, very busy session with a lot of weighty issues. Since we last spoke, we passed 2 bills dealing with reproductive health care. You all have seen those come across, and we've now passed the House crossfile of those bills, the first being the constitutional amendment, and the second being the bill that dealt with data sharing through information networks, health information networks. And so both of those bills have passed the Senate Finance Committee and gone on to the floor. We also have taken up again in the House form the Governor's Access to Banking Act, which expands access to financial services in low to moderate income communities. Really proud of the committee's work on that, as well as expanding access to health care for our National Guard members. So we've seen both of those bills, the House and Senate bills, come through the committee. Over the past few weeks, we've started wrapping up our Senate bill hearings and started taking up some bills that were heard on the House side only, and we're continuing to work on some of those bills in committee that we think are important to move. We have passed the important behavioral health package that you all heard us talk about very early in session, one of the Senate's priorities. President Ferguson, Chair Gazzone, and others put together a package of 5 bills that have passed through our chamber, and we're working on with our colleagues on the House side to make sure that those packages get to the governor's desk. We have expanded access through the committee's work for young adults to health care, extending that work through the Maryland Health Benefit Exchange for an additional 2 years. What we've had as a new subject matter of jurisdiction this year are local alcoholic beverage bills. And so we're spending a lot of time talking with local delegations and delegation chairs about their alcoholic beverage laws that impact local jurisdictions. We'll start working on those bills in the next couple of days. We have a voting session scheduled for this afternoon where we'll take some of those local bills up. Very proud of expanding services for cancer-related treatment as it pertains to lung cancer and breast cancer. We did pass the bill on biomarkers, which is kind of a unique way, a diagnostic tool that helps doctors identify specific cancers that are impacting an individual so that they can make the treatment apply specifically to that individual's form of cancer. So really proud of that bill. And as I said, we've been doing a lot of work in planning for future legislation. So a lot of bills related to work group studies and commissions so that we can take a deep dive on subject matter and not move ahead of ourselves, kind of putting the cart before the horse on important issues. One of those is related to behavioral health. We also have a bill that we're working on related to public health, looking back at the COVID pandemic, but looking forward at the needs of the state to make sure that we have the right positions, people, and resources in place to meet Maryland's needs in the healthcare space. So with that, I'll pause, Mr. President. And obviously, we passed the big cannabis bill. It's on third reader now on the floor. That took a lot of the committee's time, and we'll be working with our colleagues in the House to try to reconcile the differences between those 2 bills. So, thank you.
Now on the budget issues and related items, the chair of our Budget and Taxation Committee, Senator Gagizzoni.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the President outlined all the top-line issues of the budget. Absolutely, we are thrilled that we got a unanimous vote out of the Senate. Very proud of that. Very proud of, I think as he mentioned also, how well we've been working with the administration and the House. We are down to the last items in the conference. I've talked to some of you already over the last couple days. Look, this is, we're down to basically one issue, but you know, this is standard in many ways. It's standard in the sense that, you know, there's not always going to be complete agreement on anything, but we work together in a cooperative way, and we intend to continue to do so. I'm very hopeful that we'll have a solution very soon, and hopefully even today. I'm going to knock wood.
Excellent. All right. Questions?
Senate President, one thing that I wanted to ask you about what happened yesterday, was that, do you think that that was a stunt? And also, do you support extending the session over preserving Boost?
I don't think that we'll have to extend the session. I think that, you know, we're very close on getting to an agreement. At the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We want the best for all kids. And I think that, you know, reasonable minds will prevail. We have, we're really blessed in the state of Maryland to have the resources to do both. It's not an either or, it's a both and. And so I think that we'll, you know, continue to have conversations. You know, I have to ask the other committee their thoughts on the choice there. At the end of the day, I think that reasonable minds will prevail. And in fact, I will add, you know, the speaker and I just had a conversation yesterday. We are entirely on the same page around moving forward, making sure that this really successful session ends on a really high note. I think that we're both totally committed to the future of the state of Maryland and working well with the governor. I know our chairs have been working very collaboratively with their House counterparts. You know, this has been a really successful session. And so, you know, there are times where friends have small disagreements about the best way to get to an outcome. And I think that's what we're really talking about here. It's not the what. We believe in the same thing. We believe in all children and families having the best option, and it's how we get there. And so I think we're very close, and it'll be done in short order.
Can you talk about the difference between between both your sides now on the $100 million, now $200 million for the blueprint, and where you are on that issue?
I mean, overall, I think it's all part of a broader conversation about where is the right place to put investments for future costs. In neither case, be it transportation or in the blueprint, neither would be for immediate needs. There's a possibility that should federal projects come up, that $100 million for transportation could be used for match money. But that is, at this point, it is possible. It is not exactly known because it depends on what projects are applied for. And so it's either you invest in down payments for transportation future investments or in education future investments. Either way, they're important priorities, and moving forward, both will be funded in the years where it is most applicable.
On the cannabis bill, could you explain a little bit about the Medical Cannabis Administration that's been created? Is that a new and separate independent agency of Maryland?
Yeah, so what we, and thank you for that question, what we established in Senate Bill 516 is the Maryland Cannabis Administration, which will be the regulatory entity that will oversee the new converted licenses that our current medicinal license holders have. We now have a converted license that's basically a dual license. So those growers, processors, and dispensaries will have both medicinal cannabis and adult use. This administration will oversee those licenses as well as the issuance of the new licenses that are authorized under the bill.
So it's completely separate.
It is separate, but they work in collaboration with the Alcohol Tobacco Commission, yes.
Madam Chair, there's a large group of students coming to Annapolis today, and they're going to be lobbying in favor of Senate Bill 844. It's an online protection measure for kids going online, et cetera, et cetera. On the General Assembly's website, it looks like the Senate really hasn't moved on that. The House has made some movement. If you're familiar with the bill, I don't want to surprise you, Where does it stand, and where do you think its chances are for passage?
No, that's a very good and timely question. Thank you for that. Actually, a meeting I was in earlier this morning is on that specific bill. One of the challenges with the implementation of the bill is that there is no consistent approach to dealing with child data protection across the country. And so we're working with our colleagues, looking at those who spoke in opposition to the bill, at some of their specific recommendations about how we can make the bill better. We don't want to set into motion unintended consequences, and so we're trying to figure out how to balance the important needs of protecting our children when they're online without exposing them further. And so we're talking to all of the stakeholders, and we had a number of stakeholders on both sides of the issue participate in the hearing, as well as the folks that supported the issue on the House side. We're hoping to get to consensus before we reach sine die.
Madam Chair, could you tell us what some of the key differences are in the recreational marijuana bill? License numbers is probably one. What are some of the other key?
You know, one of the biggest differences is, and working with our colleagues in budget and tax, is probably the tax, the revenue and the distribution of the revenue. The bill came to us with a 6% tax that would go up to 9%, phase up. The Senate's version of the bill actually just brings the tax in at 9%, which is consistent with the alcohol tax. That's one of the biggest differences. The other changes that we made, the bill came to us with a 1.5% in a couple of important funds, the Public Health Fund, local revenues, and so we increased those percentages to 5% in those funds. And then those of you that were watching the floor debate know that we have a community investment fund for those communities that have been harmed by cannabis. And the bill came in with a 30% of revenue to that fund, and we increased it to 35%. In terms of the licenses and dispensaries, the major difference, the House bill would have had 75 micro dispensaries. We took that number down to 10 and don't phase it up to 75. So we just kept that number at 10. We thought it was important. Those are the non-brick and mortar dispensaries that will allow people to sell cannabis without having a storefront. We thought it was important to slow down the expansion of that until we have a couple of years of data to see how that works.
What are those, if they're not brick and mortar, what exactly
It
are
could
they?
be a delivery service, for example. We currently deliver medicinal cannabis, but this would be a provision that would allow dual delivery. And so we want to slow that down and make sure that we monitor that.
There were a number of folks on Lawyers Mall earlier this morning in regards to access to care for, regardless of immigration status, a bill that would provide that. Wondering whether that bill is likely to move forward, and if not, why?
Again, a really good question. When I gave my opening remarks, I talked about some of the issues that we believe that we need to study before implementation. Earlier this session, we passed Senate Bill 806, which is actually a study to review how we will address the healthcare needs of our immigrant community. One of the things that we don't want to do is put the cart ahead of the horse. We want to make sure that we're addressing the needs of our most vulnerable in a way that we can afford, so we don't again set unintended consequences into motion or overburden the state's fiscal resources. So that we believe that that study bill that was already passed in Senate Bill 806, it was Senator Kelly's bill, will give us the information that we need to make the right decision about how to increase or provide expanded access to health care for this population.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. Oh, go ahead, Danielle.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Danielle.
I'll bring it down. Maybe on not a happy note. You were talking about wanting to end the session on a happy note, but one thing that you will have to focus on, since you haven't this session, is revenue in upcoming sessions, if the blueprint is going to have some sustainable source of funding coming into it.
Yeah.
Do you have ideas for that? You know, will you be spending interim time on that, or how?
I would say, you know, I don't think that, I think it's too early to presume that. You know, if you look at what we're doing this year, we have the largest cash balances that we've ever had as a state, ever, historic. That is funds that are available in case of a downturn. We're also taking at least $800 million to fund future year costs. We as a state have never, ever done that before. That is what is allowing us to really think forward about where are their cost drivers. The biggest challenge that we probably have moving forward is around transportation. And I think we've seen some general funds go into the Transportation Trust Fund, which was, again, not the way that we had envisioned it back in 2013, but we've also seen huge fluctuations in the energy marketplace because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And so there's a lot of uncertainties out there that I think over the next year, we'll start to get a better sense of kind of what the global economic picture looks like and how that impacts Maryland. So I think it's too early to presume in any way that additional revenues are needed. We're in a very healthy financial state right now in Maryland, and I feel very confident about the years ahead.
Senator Gazzoni, how is Booth settled at the end of today? I mean, does it mean $1 billion in future costs for education versus the 2 that they were seeking?
Look, we'll know in a little while, I guess is the real answer. We're getting really close. I think in terms of the details, I think it's just a little premature. I just think I'll leave it at that.
But you both seem to be entrenched.
Well, let me say this. As the president has said, both sides care so much about the education of our children that they're trying to do the very best. These are, in many ways, heartfelt issues where people have minor disagreements about things that just need to be resolved. This is part of our, this is part of what we do to help make the best society we possibly can. And so I think when you see the details, and again, hopefully we'll see them very shortly, a resolution very shortly, that we will have worked out things in a very reasonable way.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you.